I am joined at this time by a lovely chap called Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Andy. Nice to be with you.
Just tell us a little bit about the organisation you work for, just at the beginning. I mean, Care for the Family, I know that name. Some may know of it, but just give us a real brief overview, if you can, of what Care for the Family is all about.
So, Care for the Family was started just over 35 years ago, and we've been supporting families ever since. So, we do all sorts of things to support families through the good times and the bad times. We have three main strands of our work. So, we support parents, we support people in couples, and we support those who are bereaved. And we do all sorts of different types of family support, produce all sorts of resources, do events, lots of stuff on our website, and lots of support to give to families.
I came to a Care for the Family event in Birmingham 8 years ago, I think. Rob Parsons was there, Catherine Hill was there, and it was a really encouraging. I think Gavin Calver was speaking as well. And it was amazing to me that it was a good event. So that's great. I mean, the venue wasn't yours, but you came in and your team was there. But what really struck me wasn't just that it was a good event. Actually, it was a really accessible event. And there was stuff in there that I thought, that's really encouraging to me. And some of the things that perhaps weren't necessarily directly applicable to me, I still thought, that's really good. And what I enjoyed so much is it wasn't a good event. It was a great event.
Well, thank you for that, Andy. That's nice to get that compliment. We do try our best to put on really good events, and what we really want to do is just meet people's needs. We want them to go away from our events feeling encouraged and perhaps feeling supported, and perhaps most of all with some hope. We want to send people away with hope. And I think sometimes when people get together, we try to be very honest and very vulnerable about some of the challenges we're facing as individuals as well. And I think that can be an encouragement to people, because it can just make them feel less alone. And that's the idea of bringing people together, really, is to bring people together, make them feel less alone, make them feel valued, make them feel special, and fill them with hope.
It's one of those things. It's too easy to say, okay, we've got our life sorted. Here's what you need to do. It'll fix your life. Just do ABC and then all's good. But actually, there's a lot of power in the vulnerability, and there's a lot of power in saying, do you know what, we haven't got this perfect, but here's a few ideas that might help you. And instead of saying you're a failure, do this, it's, well, here's stuff that's worked for us. How don't you try that? And that's kind of how I feel of the approach of Care for the Family.
That's exactly right, because the people who work for the Care for the Family, me and others, we're not perfect. We're facing our own family struggles and our family challenges, and things happen in life. They do, and then you have to deal with those things. So we're trying to work with the reality of family life. Of course, we want things to be the best they can possibly be, but we know that that's not always possible, and so we just try to support people in whatever circumstances they find themselves in, with no judgment at all.
Now, we've had this conversation because of a particular project you've got working at the moment during the summer. So just give us a little bit about that, the name and what that's actually trying to help.
Yeah, so our sort of summer campaign really is called Simple Summer. And the idea is really to try and take the pressure off parents and others to make the summer sophisticated, to come up with lots of complicated ideas and expensive ideas. We know that for many families, and then they might be facing challenges. It might be that perhaps they feel under pressure from the children. That the children are saying, "We're bored. We want to do something." Maybe they're struggling financially during the summer, and costs. It's difficult. Entertainment costs money sometimes. So, or it might be that they're comparing themselves to other people, perhaps on social media. They see people going on expensive holidays and they think, we can't afford to do that. We'd love to do that, or we just don't have the opportunity to go to these places. So we're trying to take those pressures away and just say that actually some of the best moments, the best memory making moments, can be when we keep things simple and spontaneous. And so we're just trying to help families by giving lots of ideas for things that we can do that are simple, that are spontaneous, but that will hopefully create some great memories.
It is that compare, isn't it? It's so easy to say, well, that family X have gone away, and look, they've gone to America, or they've gone to South America, and they're on this tour, and isn't it amazing? But once we see that thing and think, well, we should do some of that, all of a sudden the shoulda, woulda, coulda stuff comes in, and the should have stuff that can be so heavy as a burden when it's not even true.
Yeah, yeah, it can. And of course, we all need to remember that. And we know it deep down, but it can still affect us. That we need to remember that, of course, on social media, most people will post their best moments. Most people do. They're going to post
Of
their
course you
best
do.
moments. Yeah, yeah. And try to create a best impression. But they are the best moments. Alongside those, they'll probably be having some challenging times too. So we just need to remember that. I think the comparison is a big pressure. Do you know, when I think back, my kids are adults now, but when I think back to when they were little, one of the most memorable holidays we had and moments in a holiday was we booked a very cheap cottage in North Wales. We'd gone to stay in it. One day I thought, I'm going to make some great memories here. I'm going to fly a kite with the kids. The whole thing went drastically wrong. The kite, we couldn't get the thing off the ground. It ended up breaking. The kids wandered inside in the end. And I was thinking, I've failed miserably as a parent. But actually, that's one of the moments they remember the most. So these moments don't have to be perfect. They can be. Things can go wrong, but sometimes they're the moments our kids will remember. The cottage we were staying in, it was very cheap. It actually turned out it was riddled with mice, and so it wasn't the most comfortable week for us. But the kids loved it, because when we started setting up sort of humane traps, trying to catch these mice and let them out of the house, and I don't think we made it through the full week. But actually, they remember that holiday. They call it the Mousy Brown Cottage. Sometimes things can go wrong. We can think it's a disaster, but actually they're the things that our kids will remember.
There's a couple of things in there I think it's just worth touching on. One was you had a kite, you had an experience of what it was going to be. Here's how I'm going to engage my children, entertain my children. It'll be fun time. It'll be a memory. And yet the thing that you had, the kite, failed. But the time and the investment of you is, I imagine, what your children are probably more proud of, is more precious to them, is that, well, okay, it went wrong, but Dad tried.
Yeah, I think that is bang on, Andy. It is the time that we spend and the effort that we make that I think our children will remember the most. And of course, there will be memorable holidays that may have cost a lot, but there will also be memorable holidays that didn't. Or for those who can't afford to go on holiday, just day in, day out, just the time we spent together. And sometimes, we want to sort of manufacture those memories, and it's right to try and do that. But actually, it won't always go the way we want it to. But there will be other moments where things will just happen, and our children will remember those moments. And so, but they'll only happen if, you're right, if we spend time together, if we make some effort to just be with one another and to try to enjoy ourselves. So I would just encourage parents just to spend a bit of time. It can be very simple activities just around the house or near the house or in the garden, and might be a bit of stargazing or rock painting, or one of the things that often kids enjoy is poo sticks, where you go to a bridge, you throw some sticks in the water, you see which one comes out first. It's a very simple activity, but often children will remember those moments.
I remember doing that on a camp one time, and the camp, I don't remember anything about the camp really. I think it was a very expensive thing I've been put on, and all this stuff. The thing I remember was grabbing a stick, chucking it in the water, running across a bridge and seeing who won. Now, that's free. Most of us live near a brook or a stream or a river or something similar, or even a bath.
Yeah. And I think that's it. And it could be going to, if you're near trains, perhaps your children are young, they just like to see the trains, go and wave at the train drivers as they go under a bridge, something like that. If there's ducks somewhere, go and feed the ducks. Take grain rather than bread, but go and feed the ducks on the canal, and so yeah, there's things that I think our children will remember that are quite simple and can be done, near or around the house.
You just reminded me of a memory from my first son when he was maybe 8 or 10 months old, and we had some foam sponges, and I got one. I cut it into the shape of like a teddy bear. I'm not an artist. It sort of resembled a body of a teddy bear, maybe. And we got them wet and we chucked them on this cupboard door, and we would wait for them to fall off. Now, I don't know how it started. It's just something I did. And my son, 8 to 10 months old-ish, was completely beside himself with the excitement, with the anticipation of, oh, is it going to fall? Oh, it's fallen. And then the splat sound. And we played this for hours and it never got boring. This was a cheap foam sponge for washing up, some water and a cupboard door.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be difficult to think of these things, can't it? And some of the listeners might be thinking, "Yeah, but I don't really have any of these ideas," and that's really what we can help with. Because if listeners go to our website cff.org.uk and they go to /summer bundle, if they just pop their details in, we'll send them activity ideas. So we've got 30 activity ideas for things they can do with their children. Very simple ideas. We've also got in that bundle of stuff, we've got 30 date ideas for couples as well, and we've also got a guide in there that if people are navigating grief through the summer, that we've got some advice to them to help them navigate that grief, because obviously it can be a tough time. People are going away on holiday, spending a bit more time together. It can emphasize the loss of a person. So we've also, in that bundle of stuff, we've got a guide to navigating grief. But they just go to cff.org.uk /summer bundle, pop in their details, and we'll send them loads of ideas. In the ideas for parents and children, there's a section for younger children, a section for teenagers, and there's also a section for children with additional needs as well.
And it's all needed, because, like you said, that idea, I don't know where that foam sponge, I haven't probably shared that with anybody ever, the best part of 2 decades, and it suddenly came to me. So there's a nice, free, simple idea. Get a sponge, cut it into a shape, dunk it in water, chuck it on a cupboard. It's a simple idea for you. But those ideas, it's good to share them. Well, why am I going here? So I used to help midwives in Shropshire with breastfeeding, because I was a stay-at-home dad. We used breastfed milk, and what we found was a lot of these new mums-to-be did not know how to breastfeed. It wasn't something that had been passed down from mother to daughter. Therefore, they didn't know. So part of that thing that I was a part of with midwives was, well, this is how you breastfeed. My little part was, how do you store breast milk? Because, hey, how do you do that? How do you feed that to a child? If you don't have that information, then you can see this wall. And what we found was, just by giving basic information, they were really short, simple sessions, these mums were empowered to do something that may well be natural. But if you don't know, then you don't know. But I guess that's what you're doing in regards to serve families, all that. You're giving people basic tools.
Yeah, it can be hard, can't it? Because we sometimes, parenting, family life can be lonely. We can be busy looking after children or elderly relatives or whatever. We can be trying to work at the same time, to put food on the table, to keep a roof over our heads. We can be exhausted, and often then we might not be having those creative ideas. So yeah, we try to just take some time to think through some ideas that we think would help families. But also, what I'd encourage people to do is, if you can, just meet up with other families as well, because just sharing ideas and activities in community with other people is really important, and it can be really helpful. It might be that you've already got a group of friends that you could just contact and say, message, say, do you fancy getting together in the park? Just meet in the park with the kids. If you don't have a group of friends, it could be about finding some kind of group. It might be a parent and toddler group. Many churches run parent and toddler groups. It could be one of our projects is Who Let the Dads Out, for dads and their children. So for any dads that are listening, you might want to go along to a Who Let the Dads Out group near you. It could be, joining a church and finding community there, or it might be another type of community group. Often libraries during the summer will run some programs for children to take part in. So it's sort of looking at those kind of things, getting together with other families, sharing some ideas. And maybe even if you need a rest, if you're listening to this and you need a rest, then perhaps, it could be with a friend, just having a day off and letting them look after the children, and then you taking responsibility for their children for a day or even a couple of hours, and just giving each other a little bit of rest. So you can do something for you, because it's really important that we look after ourselves as well.
First rule of first aid, make sure you're okay. Right, let's look a little bit about Care for the Family then. How have you come to work for the Care for the Family organisation? I mean, what's your role in it, but how did you actually start working for them?
So my role at the moment is men's support manager. I'm also on the speaking team for Care for the Family, so I'll be involved in the events as we tour the country and other things too. How did I get involved in Care for the Family? I'm trying to think how to give you a very quick history of how I got there. I've been working with Care for the Family for about 20 years, but I've only actually become an employee of Care for the Family since 2018. So over 20 years ago, I was involved in establishing a project, which I've mentioned already, called Who Let the Dads Out, at the church that we went to in Chester, Hull Baptist Church. So we decided that we wanted to support dads and their children, and we started a Saturday morning dads and toddler group. And it's a long story how things happened after that, but it grew from that group into a national movement of churches and other organisations running Who Let the Dads Out groups. That project has been part of different charities, and in 2018 we became part of Care for the Family. So I moved across into Care for the Family with that project, and then have taken on a wider role. I still manage the project, but I've taken on a wider role as men's support manager, and also, as I mentioned, on the speaking team.
So that's how you got into Care for the Family. I love journeys of the, how do I explain this one? Because to be honest, so many ministries and organizations, when you say, how did you get to work for them? There's always that, well, actually, it's a funny story. And I love the fact that God has this way and this plan of putting people where he wants them, but often that is not a straight path. It's quite circuitous. There are, sheer precipice on one side, but as we keep our eyes on God, he'll walk us along the path before us to put us where we want to be. And you've been there 6 years, so clearly quite happy.
Yes, yeah. No, I love it. It's a great organisation, but most importantly, my heart is very much in what we're doing. I've been away we do single parent family holidays every year, activity holidays during the summer, heavily subsidised holidays. I've been away on those holidays, and I've seen how life changing those holidays can be for single parents. I've heard the bereavement team talk about the support that they give to parents who've been bereaved and to those who've been widowed young. I've seen the work that our additional needs support do, in terms of linking up parents with befrienders who can support them through the challenges they face daily. So, I know that the work has a huge impact and it is vitally important. So my heart is right in it, and I love working for Care for the Family. And you're right, the route is interesting, isn't it? Because people will often say there are now about 165 Who Let the Dads Out groups dotted around the country and overseas, and people will often say, "Oh, well, that's fantastic," and ask you about strategy and planning and. I have to confess that we just did what we felt God was asking us to do, and we just went from one thing to another. So, okay, God, what next? Set up this group. Okay, what about after that? Well, this person wants you to go and talk at this conference about your group, so go and talk to this conference. And so, although at times there have been people involved who have contributed sort of planning and strategy, and I worked with a guy for many years called Tony Sharp, who was brilliant at that kind of stuff. He retired recently. I'm missing him enormously, but God brought him along to help out with that as well. But the reality is, Andy, for me, it's just been often a next step thing. Okay, God, what next? And when you look back, you realise that, well, I'm glad somebody had control of what was going on, because I wasn't really sure at the time.
No, I can totally understand that, which I won't go into in this interview. But yes, I definitely get that. What's next, God, and the invitations thing. What's your story of faith then? So you're working for Care for the Family, which is a Christian organisation in various ways. But what's your story of faith, your background, that led you to decide, this Christian thing, this is for me?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a Christian family. My parents became Christians as teenagers, and they were heavily involved in church life. They also planted a church and in a community, and so I saw them exercising their faith and it affecting their life day in, day out, and their decisions, the way they interacted with people. And of course, at some point in life, then you have to decide: am I going to follow my parents' example or not? And I decided that I would. I was impressed with what their faith meant to them and how it impacted the way they behaved and the way they did things, and how God had guided them as well, and spoken to them at different points. So I became a Christian as a child, and there've been ups and downs since. We all have doubts and moments where we question things, don't we? And we reevaluate things. But do you know what, Andy? I just can't get away from the fact that I believe God exists. Otherwise, why are we here? And where have we come from? And where are we? So at my moments of greatest doubt, then the thing that's really kept me going is that I believe God exists. I just can't let go of that belief, and so that kind of grounding in faith that my parents gave me, and that, but just that strong belief that God is there, has been the foundation for my faith. And of course, the character of Jesus, which just so much that I continually learn from the way Jesus spent his time here on earth.
It's a good foundation for life, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So,
so that's
gone.
I was just going to say, so that's really my inspiration for living, and continues to affect my work to this day. And Who Let the Dads Out? We started that years ago, and one of the verses that was really important to us and defined the ministry was the last verses of the Old Testament, where God said he would send Elijah to turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. So it's a God inspired ministry that we're doing, and more modern translations talk about parents and children, but when we started, the translations said fathers and children, and so that turning the hearts of fathers to their children and children to their fathers, I feel is what God asked me to do in life, and lots of other people have got involved. So that's fantastic.
And I think there's an interesting part of that God asked you to do it, and you've done it. I sometimes sort of reflect on having faith and living out faith. They're not necessarily the same thing, although they should be part of the same puzzle. But God's given you something, and you've actually not just said, "Yeah, that's a good idea, God." Actually, you've been willing to step out and do something for that, and then you've seen that grow. But the bit that really struck me was, it's not like you had a massive plan and a 5-year strategy. It's, okay, God, what's the next step? And actually, for families as well, we can think, okay, how are we going to get through 7 weeks? Well, how are we going to get through today? And the Bible says, doesn't it? Don't worry about tomorrow. It's got enough troubles. Just do one day at a time. So your life with Who Let the Dads Out is one step at a time. And actually, in a sense, what you're saying to the parents through the Care for the Family program is, okay, what are you going to do today? Here's a thought for tomorrow. Don't get too far ahead.
Yeah, exactly, Andy. That's a great approach to life. Whenever we think ahead, it can cause anxiety, can't it? Especially when we're parenting children, because children are changing all the time. We might hear people say to us, "Wow, you think it's bad now? Wait till they get to the teenage years," and other things. "Well, you think it's bad now? Wait until they've left home. They keep coming back, and they keep wanting money, or they keep this, or they keep that." But actually, you just never know what lies ahead. Our experience isn't anyone else's experience. It's all individual, and we're individual families. And if we think too far ahead, we can, we can start worrying about things that will never happen. And so I suppose we have to tame those what ifs. Really, we can say, what if this, what if that? Tame those what ifs, and concentrate on today. What can we do today? I think it was Mark Twain, the writer, said, he said, "I'm an old man now, and I've known a great many troubles, but most of those troubles never happened." So our minds can conjure up all sorts of trouble that will never happen. So I know we've got to have an eye on the future sometimes as well, in terms of planning for things. But I think you're right. This summer, when you're with the kids, maybe it is a case of just, let's get through this day, and let's find moments of joy and fun in the day, times when we can laugh together. And
actually, I think it's okay for us to say and empower other people, that's okay, just to live for today. That's okay. Thank you, Mark, for your time.
It is.
It's encouraging, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's and it's been a pleasure to spend time with you and chat this through, Andy. It really has.
Thank you. Just give us the website one more time, and just remind people of the website and what it is that they can actually access from you guys.
So it's cff.org.uk/summer bundle. And if they go there, pop their details in, we will send them a family bundle. And it's got 3 guides, and it's got 30 activities for your family to do this summer. So things you can do with the kids. It's got 30 date ideas for the summer. So things you can do as couples. And it's got a guide to navigating grief through the summer. So it's cff.org.uk/summer bundle.
Mark, Thank you so much from Care for the Family. We'll obviously link to that when this goes out later as a YouTube channel as well. So, yeah, go and look up Care for the Family, cff.org.uk, and look up how they can help you through the summer. If you've got family, even if you're grieving through this time, then they can help you. And I guess if you're stuck, just get in touch and say, I can't find it. That's fine. They'll help you, I'm sure.
We will. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Mark. Take care. God bless.
Bye now.
Did you know Pure 24/7 Radio has a shop? Well, we do. You can buy merchandise while supporting the work that we do here. Simply head over to www.pure247radio.org/shop. That's www.pure247radio.org/shop.